The message came on an ordinary Tuesday. Every screen on Earth simultaneously flickered to the same broadcast. Tall, spindly beings with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They called themselves the Cerulean Collective, and they had been watching us for centuries. Now they were ready to make contact, but on their terms. They questioned our species' resilience, our adaptability, our right to join the greater galactic community. "Prove yourselves worthy," their ambassador stated in perfectly translated Earth languages. "Complete our crucible of endurance, a training ground we designed to test the limits of sentient evolution. No species has completed it without significant casualties. Many have failed entirely." The world's governments scrambled to respond. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session. Military leaders from global superpowers analyzed the alien footage of the course, a hellscape of obstacles that defied physics, challenges that seemed to target every biological weakness our species possessed. The Exorilians had constructed it on Mars' surface, terraforming a section of the Red Planet into their version of the ultimate proving ground. Lieutenant Colonel Zhao was among the first to volunteer. A seasoned Special Forces operator with 20 years of experience pushing human limits, she stood before the hastily assembled council of Earth's military elite and said what many were thinking. "They've misjudged us. Badly." The training videos the aliens provided showed creatures 3 times our size, struggling to complete even the initial stages. Thermal extremes that would flash freeze, then instantly superheat the body. Gravity wells that would crush bones. Atmospheric shifts that would render breathing impossible without technological assistance. "This isn't just about strength," explained Dr. Cupper, the neurophysiologist assigned to the response team. "They've designed psychological components that target fear responses, decision-making under pressure. They think they understand how our minds work." The first human cohort departed for Mars 90 days later. 200 volunteers, military specialists, extreme athletes, survival experts, prepared to face what the Ceruleans called their most challenging test ever devised. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been testing their own limits since we first stood upright on the African savanna. Cameras rolled as the team stepped onto the Martian surface, approaching the massive alien structure that housed the crucible. Lieutenant Colonel Zhao led the way, her expression calm as she surveyed what was meant to be our species' reckoning. "Begin recording," she said to the comms specialist beside her. "I want them to remember this moment, the day aliens learned about human determination." The massive doors of the facility opened with an otherworldly hiss. Inside, holographic Ceruleans waited to explain the rules. Rules designed to push participants beyond recovery, beyond hope. The first obstacle loomed ahead, a moving labyrinth of metal and energy that had decimated the previous contesting species. The human team exchanged glances. Someone in the back laughed. "Is this it?" Lieutenant Colonel Zhao asked the alien proctor, scanning what lay before them with practiced eyes. "We expected something more challenging. On Earth, we call this Tuesday." The alien's expression shifted to something unreadable as the humans began stretching, checking their gear, treating what was meant to be a nightmare as just another training exercise. And that's when the Ceruleans realized they might have severely underestimated the species they had come to test. The Cerulean proctor's translucent skin flushed a deep purple, their species' equivalent of confusion. "You misunderstand the severity of what lies ahead," it said, voice modulated to convey gravity. 17 sentient species have attempted our crucible. Only 4 completed it, none without significant loss of life. Lieutenant Colonel Zhao shrugged, adjusting the straps on her environmental suit. "With all due respect, you've been studying Earth from a distance. You've seen our wars, our sports, our exploration efforts. What you haven't experienced is our training." The team spread out at the entrance to the first challenge, a corridor where gravity shifted unpredictably while atmospheric composition altered every 30 seconds. Wall panels glowed with toxic energy that would burn unprotected skin. According to the alien briefing, Participants would need to calculate precise movements between safe zones while adapting to oxygen levels dropping to near zero. Reminds me of SCIFI training in the Arctic, just with better lighting. Quipped Rodriguez, the team's demolitions expert. He'd survived 3 weeks in hostile territory with nothing but a knife, and his wits after a mission went sideways in 2039. The rest of the squad nodded in agreement. What the Xorilians didn't realize was that Earth's special forces already trained for the impossible. The team had members who'd survived the Death Valley Gauntlet, the Siberian Endurance Trials, and the notorious Mariana Trench Descent, all human-designed programs created to push beyond perceived biological limits. Back on Earth, billions watched through the live feed. In classrooms and boardrooms, in town squares, and living rooms, humanity held its collective breath. This wasn't just a test. It was our species' introduction to the galactic community. The stakes couldn't be higher. Let me explain something about humans. Dr. Capper had told the Xorilian delegation during pre-mission briefings. We evolved as persistence hunters. Before we had tools, before we had language, we chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Our bodies are designed for endurance beyond what you might expect from our size. The delegation had dismissed his explanation. Their cultural database showed humans as fragile, creatures who required constant shelter, who died from simple environmental changes, who feared the dark and the unknown. The first team member stepped into the corridor. The alien monitoring equipment registered immediate gravity shifts, 3 times Earth normal, then suddenly 1/6. Atmospheric oxygen plummeted. The Xorilian proctors watched, expecting struggle, anticipating fear. Instead, the human moved with practiced efficiency, compensating for gravitational changes with subtle shifts in momentum that suggested prior experience. Behind their observation panel, the aliens exchanged glances. One by one, the humans entered the corridor, where previous species had crawled and struggled, gasping for breath and fighting against crushing gravity. The Earth team moved with almost casual coordination. They communicated through hand signals developed over centuries of special operations, adjusting to the changing conditions as if they'd trained for this specific scenario. They're adapting too quickly, one Xorilian observer noted, mandibles clicking with agitation. This contradicts all biological projections. The senior observer watched silently as the humans reached the corridor's end without a single casualty. Its inner eyelids narrowed as it activated the private communication channel to the high command vessel in orbit. Recommendation: proceed to difficulty level 3 immediately. The response came swiftly. Denied. Protocol requires sequential progression. With respect, High Command, these humans are not responding as anticipated. Their physiological readings suggest they are treating this as exercise. On the course, Lieutenant Colonel Joe gathered her team at the checkpoint. They'd completed in 20 minutes what should have taken hours. As they hydrated and checked equipment, a low rumble shook the facility. The lighting shifted from amber to blood red. Beyond the next doorway, something massive was being reconfigured. Looks like our hosts are changing the rules, Zhao said, eyes narrowing at the Xorilian observation window. Good. I was starting to think we came all this way for nothing. The massive door slid open to reveal what could only be described as a nightmare landscape. Unlike the clinical precision of the first challenge, this environment mimicked a volcanic hellscape, bubbling pools of liquid that registered at temperatures that would melt human flesh, jagged obsidian-like formations that could slice through their protective gear, and air so thick with particulates it appeared as a ruddy fog. They've skipped level 2 entirely, the communications specialist whispered, checking readings on her wrist display. This is configured for level 4 difficulty. Lieutenant Colonel Joe's expression remained unchanged. Good. Means we've got them worried. She turned to address the team. Remember your training. Desert Storm survival protocols. Treat every surface as hostile. Conserve oxygen. Move like you're crossing the Thar Desert minefield. Back on Earth, military command centers around the globe buzzed with activity. At NASA's Mission Control, Dr. Capper paced nervously as he watched the feed. Beside him, General Rivera, the military liaison to the Xorilian delegation, studied the alien observers with narrow eyes. "They're changing the parameters mid-test," Rivera noted. "That wasn't part of the agreement." Dr. Capper nodded. "It means our team is performing beyond their expectations. The question is whether this is scientific curiosity or something else." On the Xorilian High Command vessel, a heated debate was underway. The ship's overseer, a veteran of 3 first contact scenarios, confronted the science director. "This violates protocol," the overseer hissed. "The crucible is meant to test, not eliminate." The science director's skin rippled with patterns that indicated disagreement. "Humans represent an anomaly. Their history shows a species that thrives on conflict, that expands aggressively. Other council races have expressed concerns about their inclusion in the galactic community. So this isn't a test. It's an elimination assessment. It's prudence," the science director replied. "If they truly are as adaptable as initial readings suggest, they deserve their place. If not." On Mars, the human team moved through the volcanic terrain with methodical precision. Rodriguez took point, using a small probe to test surfaces before the team committed to a path. Behind him, Lieutenant Colonel Zhao maintained constant communication with the 4-person squads they'd divided into. "Squad 3 reporting unexplained movement at 3 o'clock, came a voice over the comm. "Might be environmental, might be something else." Zhao signaled to her immediate team to hold position. "Elaborate." "Squad 3. The terrain is changing, reconfiguring itself as we move, almost like it's learning from our patterns." This wasn't in the briefing. The crucible was supposed to be difficult but fair, a standardized test of capability. Adaptive environments suggested an entirely different purpose. Meanwhile, in Squad 4, technical specialist Chen had been unusually quiet. As the team's expert on xenotechnology, she'd spent months studying what little data Earth had on Xorilian systems. Now, as they paused on a relatively stable rock formation, she pulled Lieutenant Weber aside. "This isn't just a test," she whispered, keeping her voice below the comm pickup threshold. "I've been monitoring their network frequencies. There's far more data being collected than what's needed for a simple assessment." Weber's eyes narrowed. "What kind of data?" "Neural patterns, stress responses, decision-making algorithms. They're building a comprehensive model of human psychology under extreme conditions." Chen hesitated. "The kind you'd need if you were planning for conflict." Across the volcanic field, Squad 2 had discovered something unexpected. A small alcove where the environmental hostility mysteriously decreased. Inside, strange crystalline formations pulsed with light. "Command, we've found something," the squad leader reported. "Some kind of monitoring station, I think. There's interface technology here." Zhao's voice came back instantly. "Do not engage. Repeat, do not." "It's showing us something," the voice continued, ignoring the order. "Images, Earth cities, military installations. It's like a targeting system." In the observation room, the Xorilian proctors suddenly became agitated, multiple appendages moving frantically over control surfaces. One turned to communicate urgently with a superior, its color shifting to a warning hue. Lieutenant Colonel Zhao processed this information rapidly. "All squads, converge on Squad 2's position. Something's not right." She turned to Rodriguez. "Looks like this isn't just an entrance exam. It's an intelligence-gathering operation." As the teams began moving toward the new coordinates, the environment around them shifted dramatically. The volcanic terrain reconfigured, opening chasms between groups, isolating them from each other. "They're trying to separate us," Zhao broadcast. "Hold your positions," and her communication cut off as the ground beneath her feet suddenly disappeared, sending her and 3 team members plummeting into darkness below. Above, Rodriguez watched in horror as the opening sealed itself as quickly as it had appeared. In the observation room, the senior Xyrillian turned to face the camera that connected to Earth's command center. For the first time since the challenge began, it addressed the humans directly. "Your species continues to surprise us," it said, its translation carrying an unmistakable tone of threat. "Perhaps it is time we were more direct about what this test truly measures." The silence that followed the Xyrillian's words hung heavy in the air. Rodriguez stared at the spot where Zhao and the others had disappeared, his mind racing through training protocols that had never covered anything like this. "Sir," Technical Specialist Dawson's voice pulled him back to reality. "What do we do now?" Rodriguez steadied his breathing, remembering Zhao's last order. "We stick to the mission. If they wanted us dead, we'd be dead already." He activated his comm system, broadcasting on all frequencies. All remaining squads, report positions and status. One by one, the squads called in. 8 people unaccounted for, including Zhao. The rest were scattered across the hellish landscape, separated by chasms and rivers of molten material that hadn't been there minutes before. Deep below the surface, Zhao regained consciousness in near-total darkness. Her suit's emergency lighting flickered on, revealing 3 of her team members in varying states of alertness. They'd landed on some kind of cushioning material that had broken their fall. Intentionally placed, she realized. This wasn't an accident. "Status report," she demanded, checking her own systems. Her communications were jammed, but her suit integrity remained intact. "Minor injuries only, Colonel," replied Medical Officer Lin, already tending to a gash on Specialist Catri's arm. "But I don't think we fell here by chance." Zhao nodded, surveying their surroundings as her eyes adjusted. They were in some kind of chamber, its walls covered with the same crystalline technology Squad 2 had reported. But this room was larger, more elaborate, a control center of sorts. "They wanted us to see this," she murmured, approaching one of the displays. It flickered to life at her proximity, showing what appeared to be Earth's defense grid, information that should have been classified at the highest levels. Back on the surface, Rodriguez had managed to get Squad 3 and 4 to rendezvous at a relatively stable plateau. Chen had been working furiously on her portable system, trying to break through the communication blackout. "I got something," she announced, her voice tight with tension. "It's not our comms, but I'm picking up their internal network traffic. I think," she hesitated, "I think they're arguing among themselves." Weber leaned over her shoulder, studying the data stream. "Can you translate any of it?" "Bits and pieces. There are factions forming. Some want to continue what they're calling the assessment. Others want to abort. They keep referencing something called the directive." Rodriguez felt a chill that had nothing to do with environmental controls. "The directive." Chen nodded grimly. "From context, I think it's some kind of protocol for handling potentially dangerous species. At NASA's mission control, chaos had erupted following the Xyrillian's ominous message. Screens flickered with static, data feeds corrupted or cut entirely." Dr. Kepper gripped the edge of a console, knuckles white, as technicians fought to restore connections. "Get me something, anything," he shouted. "We have people up there." General Rivera had already mobilized, barking orders into a secure line. "I want every satellite we have pointed at that test site, and get me a direct line to the Xyrillian ambassador. Now." "Sir," a young lieutenant interrupted, "you need to see this." He pointed to a screen showing orbital tracking data. The Xyrillian ships in Earth orbit were moving, taking up new positions over major population centers. Rivera's face hardened. "It's not just a test. It's reconnaissance for an invasion." On the Xyrillian command vessel, the internal conflict had escalated. The overseer faced down not just the science director now, but the military coordinator as well. "The humans have accessed restricted systems," the military coordinator declared, appendages rippling with agitation. "They've seen the directive interfaces. Protocol dictates immediate containment. They found what you deliberately placed in their path, The overseer countered. This assessment has been compromised from the start. I am exercising emergency authority to terminate the operation. You don't have that authority, the science director said softly. Not since the council voted on the human question last cycle. The overseer's color paled. There was no such vote. There was. You were simply not informed. The military coordinator gestured, and security personnel entered the chamber. The decision was made. Earth represents an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. The crucible is merely confirmation of what we already knew. Underground, Zhao and her team had made a discovery that changed everything. The control room wasn't just monitoring the test. It contained historical records going back decades. Earth had been under surveillance since before the first moon landing. Look at this, Chaktri called out, pointing to a display showing images of human conflicts throughout history, annotated with Taurillian analysis. They've been studying our wars, our weapons development. They think we're inherently aggressive. Zhao studied another console, this one showing what appeared to be invasion scenarios. They're not testing if we deserve to join their community. They're assessing if we're too dangerous to be allowed to continue developing. Lin looked up from another display, her face ashen. Colonel, I think I found their timetable. If I'm reading this correctly, they've already launched the first phase. On the surface, the environment had begun to change again, but differently this time. The volcanic features were receding, replaced by sterile white walls closing in from all sides. The crucible was being shut down, its parameters reset. They're changing the game, Rodriguez muttered, watching as the hellscape dissolved around them. Chen, what are you getting from their network? Mass communication. Emergency protocols. Chen's eyes widened as she decoded more of the alien transmissions. Rodriguez, they're calling their ships back from Earth orbit. Something's happening. Before Rodriguez could respond, a section of the now featureless white wall slid open, revealing a corridor. Standing in the opening was a Taurillian, its skin cycling through colors they'd never seen before. Behind it stood Lieutenant Colonel Zhao and her missing team members, apparently unarmed. Your commander has discovered something that changes everything, the Taurillian announced, its translator rendering its speech in flat, emotionless tones. A choice must now be made, not just for humanity, but for all sentient life in this sector. Rodriguez stepped forward cautiously, eyes locked with Zhao's. Her expression was unreadable, but she gave him the slightest nod, a signal they'd developed over years of working together. Whatever was happening, she wanted him to play along. What kind of choice? He asked. The Taurillian's skin shifted to a deep, pulsing blue. Whether your species becomes the salvation we have sought for millennia, or the harbinger of our extinction. On Earth, as communication suddenly restored, the screens at Mission Control displayed something no human had ever seen. The full might of the Taurillian fleet, emerging from what appeared to be tears in the fabric of space itself. Not dozens of ships, but thousands, a force that could reduce Earth to ash in minutes. And they were not alone. Other vessels, of designs completely unknown, were appearing alongside them. My God, General Rivera whispered, it's not an invasion. It's a war, and they're not the only players. The Taurillian facing Rodriguez and the team extended an appendage, revealing what looked like an ancient artifact of non-human design. This is the legacy key, entrusted to my bloodline for 12 generations. It was never meant to be used. Its translator couldn't fully convey the emotion, but the meaning was clear: desperation. What does it do? Zhao asked, her voice steady despite everything. It activates the crucible's true purpose, the Taurillian replied. Not a test, but a weapon, one that could end the threat we have feared since before your kind mastered fire. It paused, its skin cycling through colors rapidly. But using it requires a sacrifice we are unwilling to make. A distant rumbling shook the structure around them, dust drifting down from above. The Taurillian's posture changed, becoming more urgent. They're coming. the ones we built the Crucible to stop. And now, humans, we must decide. Will you take up the burden my people can no longer bear? For a moment, Rodriguez could only stare at the ancient artifact, its surface pulsing with an energy that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The choice before them was impossible. Take up an alien weapon they didn't understand, or face an enemy they'd never known existed. Who is coming? Zhao asked, her voice cutting through the tension. We need to understand what we're facing before we make any decision. The Xyrillian skin rippled with what might have been respect. We call them the Void. They exist between realities, feeding on sentient life. For millennia, my people held them at bay using the Crucible network. But we've grown. Complacent. Divided. Some believe the threat is merely historical, others seek to use it for power. It gestured toward the corridor behind them. The ones who orchestrated your test are those who wish to control the Void, not destroy it. Another tremor shook the structure, stronger this time. Dust and fragments of ceiling rained down around them. How does the key work? Technical specialist Chen stepped forward, her analytical mind already racing through possibilities. It requires a neural interface, a mind capable of channeling specific emotional patterns. The Xyrillian's translator couldn't quite capture the nuance, but its meaning was clear enough. My species has evolved away from these patterns. Yours still embraces them. What patterns? Rodriguez pressed. What you might call hope in the face of certain defeat. The capacity to stand against impossible odds. The alien skin cycled to a color they hadn't seen before. The quality that brought your team here, despite knowing you were being tested beyond your capabilities. Understanding dawned on Zhao's face. That's why you wanted humans for the Crucible. You needed our tenacity. The structure shook again, and urgent communications flooded Chen's translator. They're breaking through the outer defenses, she reported. Whatever we're going to do, it needs to happen now. Rodriguez looked at Zhao, then at the rest of the team, humans from different nations, backgrounds, and disciplines, united by a mission they never fully understood until this moment. He saw in their eyes not fear, but determination. We'll do it, he said simply. But not for you, for Earth. The Xyrillian extended the key. One mind must guide it. Choose carefully. Without hesitation, Zhao stepped forward. It should be me. Colonel. Rodriguez began, but she cut him off. This was my mission from the start. Her eyes met his, conveying everything words couldn't. Besides, someone needs to get our people home. Before anyone could object further, she took the key. It seemed to meld with her hand, tendrils of light spreading up her arm, across her shoulders, enveloping her in a nimbus of energy. I feel everything, she whispered, her eyes now glowing with the same light. The network, the Void, all of it. The Xyrillian backed away, gesturing for the others to do the same. The Crucible recognizes its new keeper. The interface is establishing. On Earth, in command centers and observation posts worldwide, the impossible was unfolding. The threatening fleet had been joined by even more ships, but now they were engaged in battle with the newcomers, energy weapons flaring across the void of space. It's working. Chen breathed, watching the data feeds on her wrist display. The Crucible is activating worldwide. Through the connection, Zhao directed the ancient defense network with instinctive precision. The void entities, caught in its web, began to disintegrate, pulled back to their own dimension. As the light around her intensified, Zhao looked one last time at her team. Tell them we passed the test, she said with a slight smile before the energy enveloped her completely. When it faded seconds later, the key remained, but Zhao was gone. 3 months later, Rodriguez stood before the United Nations Security Council, concluding his report on humanity's new place in the galactic community. The Xyrillians have honored their agreement. Earth is now under their protection while we develop our own defenses. And the Crucible Network, with Lieutenant Colonel Zhao at its heart, stands guard not just for humanity, but for all sentient life. He paused, looking out at the assembled leaders. We were tested not to determine if we belonged, but to see if we could save them. In our greatest challenge, we found our greatest purpose.